Good morning, Raviji.
ॐ
सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै
वीर्यं करवावहै
मा विद्विषावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ तत्सत् ॐ नमः शिवाय. So we are on Anuvaka 2. Those who are using Mantra Pushpam was at page 24. The first line we will chant. Anyontara Atma Pranamayaha.
अन्योन्तर आत्मा प्राणमयः
नमयः
Tenaisha Purnaha.
तेनैष पूर्णः
Sava Esha Purushavida Eva.
स वा एष पुरुषविद एव
Tasya Purushavidatam.
तस्य पुरुषविदताम्
Anvayam Purushavidaha.
अन्वयम् पुरुषविदः
तस्य प्राण एव शिरः.
तस्य प्राण एव शिरः
व्यानो दक्षिणः पक्षः.
व्यानो दक्षिणपक्षः
अपान उत्तरः पक्षः.
अपान उत्तरपक्षः
आकाश आत्मा.
आकाश आत्मा
पृथिवी पुच्छं प्रतिष्ठा.
पृथिवी पुच्छं प्रतिष्ठा
ततप्येष श्लोको भवति.
तदप्येष श्लोको भवति.
So we were seeing Panchakosha Viveka, and we had moved in from Annamaya to Pranamaya, and we had said that since we have now moved to Pranamaya, we are now saying that Pranamaya is Atma, I am Pranamaya. Therefore, Annamaya becomes an Atma and it becomes a Kosha. Right? So this resolution is called Pravilapanam, we said. So now we say Tena Esha Purnaha. Tena Esha Purnaha. So Tena means Pranamayena. By that Pranamaya, Eshaha. Eshaha refers to the kosha which was relegated to kosha status. So Esha is Annamaya Rasamaya Atma, which is now no longer Atma, which is now Annamaya Kosha. So Tenesha Esha Purnaha. By that Pranamaya, the Annamaya is filled. Right? So it's a very important idea. The Annamaya, the physical body, is the container. And it is as if Pranamaya is being poured into it. And therefore, Pranamaya also now acquires the status of the container, the shape of the container. So Pranamaya is also now in the shape of the human body, since we are talking about the human body as a container. Right? So remember that right now we are in Pranamaya and we will be moving to Manomaya. But until we get to Manomaya, Pranamaya is the Atma. The status of Atma, I, has to be given to Pranamaya. And what is the status? What is the shape of Pranamaya? Annamaya is the only one of the koshas which has got a natural intrinsic shape. Manushya Akara, the shape of the human. Right? So this is what is being said here. That this Annamaya has got the shape of a human body. Manushya Akara. Pranamaya is going to take the shape of whatever it is being poured into, whatever container the pranamaya will be having. That pranamaya takes on the shape of the container. And here it is being poured into the Annamaya vessel. So just like water, which has no intrinsic shape, but it takes the shape of the glass into which it is poured, right? The shape of the container is what defines the shape of the content. So now the container being Annamaya, this Pranamaya has taken on the borrowed shape of the Annamaya, which is the human body. So Manushya Akara, in the shape of the human body. So he says, Sava Eshaha Purushavidaha Eva. Sava Eshaha is Savai Eshaha. Indeed, this Pranamaya Atma. So that Eshaha pronoun has to be, correctly applied everywhere. Earlier on it was Annamaya. Now Sava Eshaha means this Pranamaya Atma Purusha Vida Eva. So Purusha Vida means Purusha Akara Eva in the shape of the human body. So the Pranamaya will also take on the shape of the Annamaya, Purusha Akara. What happens at the time of death of the physical body? The Pranamaya leaves the Annamaya, right? Because Pranamaya is part of Sukshma Shariram. So it leaves the Annamaya and therefore it doesn't necessarily have to take on the same shape in the next birth, right? If in the next birth that human has inferior birth or a superior birth, different physical body, that pranamaya will then take the shape of the next physical body. So Purusha Vida Eva, the shape of the human body is applicable only to this current birth. It need not be in the next birth. Right. And Tasya Purusha Vidatam Anmayam Purusha Vidaha. So I am Purusha Vidaha, the repetition. I am this pranamaya, Atma, Purusha Vidaha is of human form. And why is that so? Anvayam Purusha Vidaha. Anu, I am Purusha Vidaha. Anu means in keeping with Tasya. Tasya here means Anna Rasamayasya. That is the form of the human body. So in keeping with Anna Rasamayaha, remember Anna Rasamayaha is that Maya, that product made of Anna Rasam. Right? We must remember all this which we have done earlier. And what is made of Anna Rasam? The human body. Therefore, this pranamaya takes on Purusha Vidata, the same form of the human body, Purusha. And Shankara adds a comment. I said water, but Shankara says, like the molten metal which has been poured into a mold, the molten metal takes the form of the mold. And the same principle has to be extended. In keeping with the Annamaya Kosha, the first Kosha, all the later ones will have the same shape. Because Annamaya shape is intrinsic. It is Swatantra shape, independent shape, independent of anything else. It is made from the uh, five elements and it has got a particular shape. Pranamaya takes the shape of the Annamaya. Later on, as the other koshas, Manomaya is now poured into the Pranamaya. Pranamaya already has the human shape. Therefore, Manomaya also will have human shape. So the Annamaya shape is intrinsic. The other shapes are all, the other four have all got incidental shapes, borrowed shapes, dependent upon the shape of Annamaya. Okay. Now that we have said, this Pranamaya, the shape of the Pranamaya is that of a human body. So then Shruti says, in that case, we have to talk about the various parts of the Pranamaya. And therefore, the put Mulam, if you see, Tasya Prana Eva Shiraha. Tasya, of that Pranamaya Atma. So remember, it is Atma right now. Pranamaya is Atma. It's not yet become another. So Tasya, of that Pranamaya Atma, Prana Eva Shiraha. Prana is the head. Now this Prana is the Prana of the Pancha Prana. Prana is the Shiraha, the head. Head is what? The most prominent part. Right? And what is Prana? So, so that we won't make a mistake, Shankara defines prana. He says, Mukha Nasika Nisaranaha. Nissaranaha means that which comes out. And Mukha Nasika means that which comes out from the nose on the face. Very, very specific definition. That flow from which comes out, not in, not goes in, which comes out from the nose, which is on your face. Okay, that is called prana. Shankara defines prana. So this is the outward flow. And pranamaya has, of course, the others prana, other pranas also. Prana, apana, udana, samana, vyana. And of these five, the most important function is what? Prana. Therefore, it is like the head, which is the most dominant feature. Logically, you can say also prana is a respiration. Therefore, without respiration, one cannot be alive. Just like without your head also, one cannot be alive because the brain is contained in the head. The brain controls all the functions of the body. Therefore, the head is the primary organ of the body. Similarly, prana is the primary part of the pranamaya atma. Then we go to the next one. Vyano dakshinaha pakshaha. Vyana is the circulatory function. And dakshinaha paksha, literally dakshina means south. But in all these mantras, it is to be taken as right. Why? Because you have to visualize that you are facing the east, and therefore the right side is Dakshinaha. So he says Vyana is Dakshinaha, the right side. But there could be a problem here. Can you figure out what the problem is when you say Vyana is Dakshinaha Paksha, is on the right side?
How will the left side?
Actually, it should be all over. Circulation is
Circulate. Because Vyana is circulatory, it is to be actually all over. Right? Then why does Shruti say on the right side? So that's a question. Shankara simply says, because Shruti says so. You cannot question. Vachanat eva. Shruti vachanat eva. Because Shruti says that it is on the right side, you have to take it as the right side. Okay. Actually, remember, Vyana. Vyana is what? Vishwataha Gamana Van Vayu. Remember the definition? Vishwataha Gamana Van Vayu. That which flows in all directions. It is a circular system. But here it is simply a visualization. In that pranamaya atma, you have to take the vyana vayu as the right side. You have taken the pranavayu as the head. And what is the reason? Simply because vachanat eva. Shruti vachanat eva. Shruti says it is right side, so take it as right. And then apana uttara pakshaha. The apana is the excretory vayu, is visualized as the left hand side, uttara pakshaha. And apana is the one which removes all the garbage from the body. Right? So what is apana's job? After Vyana enables all the nutrients to be absorbed, the remnants have to be disposed. And the disposal agency is apana. The next one is akasha atma. So akasha literally is what? Space. But since we are talking about pranamaya atma, if you want to find out what is akasha, you have to figure out what occupies the central space. What occupies the central space in the body? Which of the pranas?
samana, digestive.
Samana prana, right? So udara akasha, the one in the stomach, is occupied by samana prana. And therefore akasha atma means that this is the digestive system, the samanaha. That samana is not mentioned here. You have to carefully remember it means samana prana. And sa atma eva atma. Atmeva atma. That samana prana also is called atma sometimes because it is the most important part. Then prithvi pucham pratishtha. So Prithvi here is Prithvi Devata. It's not the earth, it's not the Golakam, the earth. It's Prithvi Devata. And Prithvi Devata, according to Shastra, is supposed to be located in the lower part of the body. And also Shastra says elsewhere that the responsibility for retaining the pranavayu in your body, the responsibility for retaining the pranavayu in your body. Why retaining? Which is the flow of prana. We just finished saying all this. Which way does prana flow?
Upwards.
Outward.
Urdhvagacchati.
Right. Adho gacchati.
Udana.
Uda.
Therefore, if somebody has to hold it back, no? Because otherwise it's moving outwards and it will leave the body. Therefore, it says Prithvi Devata is responsible for ensuring that pranavayu stays in the body. And since it is responsible for retaining the pranavayu, it is a support for the body. Therefore, Prithvi Pucham Pratishtha. Pratishtha means support. Pucham means actually literally means lower, literally means a tail, right? But here you can take it as lower part. So Prithvi Devata, who is in the lower part, he is the Pratishtha, the support for the Vayu, so that Vayu doesn't leave as long as your prarabdha is there. And therefore, remember that Prithvi Devata knows our prarabdha, right? And Prithvi Devata will continue to support the prana in the body as long as prarabdha is there. So Prithvi Devata is connected to prarabdha. Once the prarabdha is gone, Prithvi Devata's role is exhausted and he will no longer hold the prana. And Pucham means, of course, lowest part, a lower part, like a tail. And in many animals, the tail is the organ which gives them support. So that's Pratishtha. That's why Pratishtha also over here. And Shankara quotes Prashana Upanishad here, which we have not done. But in Prashana Upanishad, it is said that Prithvi Devata occupies the lower half of the stomach and thus maintains the balance of pranamaya. And what happens if Prithvi Devata is not supporting, or when the prarabdha is over, Prithvi Devata decides that my job is over. So he says Anyatha, Shankara says Anyatha, without the support of the Prithvi Devata, Udana Pranaha, which is Urdha Gamanava, Urdhvam Gamanava, which has an upward movement in any case, if without the support of Prithvi Devata, Shankara says the pranamaya, the prana will leave the body. And that is why Prithvi Devata is called Pratishtha, the tail, the support for pranamaya atma. And then tadeshapi shloko bhavati. Tad api shloko bhavati. So tadapi esha shloko bhavati in reference, in reference to the pranamaya atma, tadapi, the following shlokaha, rig mantra, is there. So with this, Anuvaka number 2 is over. I will request Rajaniti to chant the entire Anuvaka number 3.
Om Acharya ji. Om Pranan Deva Anuprananti Manushya Pasavascha ye Prano hi bhuta namayuhu Tasmaat sarvayushamuchyate Sarvamevata ayuryanti Ye pranam brahmopasate Prano hi bhutanamaayuhu Tasmat sarvayushamuchyata iti Tasyaisha eva sharira atma Yah purvasya Tasmadva एतस्मात् प्राणमयात् अन्योन्तर आत्मा मनोमयः तेनैष पूर्णः स वा एष पुरुषविद एव तस्य पुरुषविधताम् अन्वयं पुरुषविदः तस्य यजुरेव शिरः ऋग्दक्षिणः पक्षः सामोत्तरः पक्षः आदेश आत्मा अथर्वाङ्गिरसः पुच्छं प्रतिष्ठा तदप्येष श्लोको भवति. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajniti. So now, as you can see, the last part of the last Anuga said, Tadapi Esha Sloka Bhavati, which means the Rig Veda is being now quoted, and therefore this is a Rig Veda over here. The Rig Veda mantra is being quoted, and up to iti is the mantra. When iti is there, the mantra ends. As you know, Sanskrit has no quotation marks and all that, no punctuation marks in the old days. So iti is to indicate that that is the end, like a full stop. Okay. You might ask, why are there no punctuation marks? Because it is all oral tradition. So if in today's versions, of course, if you look at a book, you will see the mark which indicates full stop. But that was not there in the old days. So here iti indicates the end of the quotation. Okay. So pranam deva anu prananti manusyaha pasavaschaye. So traditionally, there is a name for Samashti Prana. One, of course, is Hiranyagarbha, the Samashti Sukshma Shariram. There is also one more name. Anybody knows?
Sir, Sutratma.
Very good. It's called Sutra, right? But here it is being referred to as Prana. Okay, so Ye Devaha, from the Moolam, Ye Devaha, all gods, all these gods, then that Ye you have to supply further. Ye Manusyaha, all these human beings, Chaye Pashavaha, all the animals. It's a reference. All the gods, all the human beings, and all the animals, prananti. Prananti is they live. Why? Anupranam. Anupranam means they depend on prana. They live depending on prana because prana. So all these gods, human beings, and animals, etc., they live only because of prana, right? Because it is prana which is the basic uh, power which enables life. And that is why also, you say that sometimes when you go to a Guruji, it is sometimes they claim that Gurujis and Mahatmas, they bless you with the energy. True or false? The palm is raised. So the prana is supposed to radiate from the palm. Why? Because this person, this Mahatma, is one with the Samashti Prana Tattva. Okay, that is of course by the way. So here Shankara says Adhyatma Adhikarat. In the spiritual context, in the Panchakosha Vivekaha, Devas are not the lords, are not gods. Devas are another name for sense organs. So Shankara's meaning is completely different from the literal meaning which I told you, humans, animals, and gods. Shankara says Devaha is sense organs and Pranam Anuhu means backed by the Mukhya Prana, Pancha Pranaha. Prananti. Prananti means they function. And this is the alternate meaning. So it says all the sense organs, they function backed by the Mukhya Prana. And one sub-commentator I am unable to know the name. He says Va. Va means end. So it's Chakara. He says that Chakara, that this particular Va is to be taken as end. And means that both the meanings are okay. Which meanings animals, human beings, and gods say okay. The Pancha Pranas are also okay. And he gives his reasoning. He says because one you can take as Samashti level, macro level, and one you can take as Vyashti level. Obviously, when you say all human beings, gods, and animals, it is at the macro level. When you say Pancha Prana, sense organs, it is at Vyashti level, the individual level. So both meanings are okay. We can take whichever one we want. Then, तथा मनुष्याः पशवश्च ये. Manusyas, human beings, and Pashu, animals, are also supported tatha by that Sutratma. And te pranan karmanaiva cheshtavanto bhavanti, says Shankara. All the functions are supported by Pranashakti only. Right? And if you consider that the subtle body, it consists of which koshas?
Pranamaya,
Pranamaya,
Manomaya,
Manomaya,
Vijnanamaya.
मनोमय
Vijnanamaya.
विज्ञानमय और आनंदमय.
Mhm.
Anybody wants to?
Pranamaya,
Pranamaya,
Manomaya,
Manomaya, Vijnanamaya.
Vijnanamaya. Anandamaya is not. Okay, so there are two. When you look at the Panchakoshas, you have one end you have got Annamaya, other end you have got Anandamaya. The middle three, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Pranamaya are the subtle bodies of Shariram. Okay. Now, which is out of these three, which is that which supports the Sukha Shariram?
Pranamaya.
The Pranamaya. So you can say that just as the physical body cannot function without the subtle body, subtle body cannot function without the pranamaya. So Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha will not be functioning without the support of the Pranamaya Kosha. And that is why the physical body also functions, because Pranamaya Kosha is there in the subtle body, which has to be there in the physical body for it to function. Right? So that you must remember that even the subtle body needs pranamaya for its function. And therefore he says, prano hi bhutana ayuhu. Prana itself, ayu here means the life. Prano hi bhutanam ayuhu. Prana itself is the cause of the life of all pranis, of all living beings. And Shankara adds, prana hi yasmat bhutana praninam ayu. He says that the prana itself determines the extent of life also. Not only is it the cause of the life, it quotes the extent of the life. And he quotes an Upanishad which we have not done, called Kaushitaki Upanishad, where he says that Yavat hi asmin sharire prane. You understand? Yavat hi asmin sharire prane. As long as in this body prana exists, tavat ayuhu vasati. The life remains that long. So Kaushitaki Upanishad. Okay. That's why when you do your Sandhya Vandanam, for those of us who do, you are asking for prana, sort of battery recharge for yourself, right? And then we come back to the Mulam. Tasmat Sarva Ayusham Uchyate. Therefore, Tasmat, therefore, why? Because of all these reasons, Samashti Prana, you have to supply that. Samashti Prana is called Sarvayusham. Sarvayusham is that which is the cause of the life of everybody. So Sarva Ayu alone is called Sarvayusham. And Sarvayusham is therefore name for Pranan Brahma. Just as Annan Brahma was called what? In the last mantra, we used a word for Annam Brahma or Annam Atma.
Sarva Aushadham.
Sorry?
Sarva Aushadham, no?
Sarva Aushadam. Right? Similarly, here, Pran Brahma, Pranatma is called Sarva Ayusham. Right? So Annam Atma or Annam Brahma was called Sarva Aushadam. Pran Brahma, Pranatma is being called Sarva Ayusham. Therefore, remember that when we are doing this upasana, we have to be very clear that the Vyashti Pranamaya, the micro Pranamaya, is not separate from the Samashti Pranamaya, Samashti Pranaha. The Vyashti Prana and Samashti Prana, they are not different. And therefore, when we say that the prana leaves the body, it is just moving from Vyashti to Samashti. Only that name and form is gone. The essence is never lost. And therefore, death, we have to stop of thinking of death as a big tragedy. And that is why, in the Veda, of course, we have not done all this. Some part of Karma Kanda. In the Veda, there are Vedic mantras which are to be chanted at the time of the death. And one particular mantra says, this is being chanted at the time of the death of a loved one. Okay. So that particular mantra says, let the Vyashti prana merge into the Samashti prana. What is the advantage of this chant? That the person who is my loved one has not been lost, but he has just changed his residence. He has gone from Vyashti to Samashti, right? So therefore, death is a very, very powerful event for us. It is like returning home. The Vyashti goes back to Samashti. And that's why this meditation is important, because we are all identified very strongly with the micro, the Vyashti. But as you meditate in this manner, realizing that when the body falls, nothing is lost. The Vyashti is only going and merging the Samashti. Our obsession with the Vyashti comes down. Therefore, this upasana can be called pranamaya, that is to say, the Vyashti prana, Samashti prana, Aikya upasana. The Samashti prana is called Pranan Brahma. Brahma, of course, here means the macro, Samashti. What is the advantage? Advantage, Shruti says, Sarvam eva te ayur yanti. Te sarvam eva ayu asmin loke yanti. You have to expand that in this manner. Sarvam eva te ayuyanti. All of them, they get their complete allocated life in this loka. Sarvam eva ayu, full life. Right? And he says Asmin Loki. Asmin Loki, in this world, they will get their full life. So what is meant by this full life? Sarvam eva ayuhu. Shankara says, gives two nice meanings. So in Shastra, there is something called apamrityu, not normal mrityu. It's called apamrityu. What is apamrityu? Apamrityu is a peculiar concept, right? It is death before its time, which means death before the prarabdha of the physical body has been exhausted. Now that should set you thinking. How can a person die before the prarabdha has been exhausted?
Like suicide.
Abuse of free will, suicide.
Mm.
Okay. Therefore, he says that such a person, when you say sarvam eva ayu, such a person will have a normal death. His complete prarabdha will be exhausted. And therefore, sarvam ayuhu, the prarabdha is what determines your body life, right? Ayu is determined by the prarabdha. So he will not have a death which cuts short the prarabdha. Right, that's the first meaning. He will not have apamrityu. And the second one is that according to Shastra, the normal life of a person is 100 years. 100 years. Okay. So, in fact, there is kurvanneveha karmani jijiveshachattaga samaha. May you desire to live for shatagam, 100 years. Samaha means years. Shatagam means 100. So may you live to desire for 100 years. Do you know where it appears? We have not done this Upanishad. Very famous, very small one.
Ishavasya Upanishad.
Shavasya. Right. There is also one more which we have done, but I don't know whether we'll remember it. Shatam Varshaniti tu yuktam sarvam ayuhu iti. Shatam Varshan iti tu yuktam sarvam ayuhu iti. We have done this. I am sure nobody will remember. Okay. Which Upanishad? Chandogya Upanishad, second chapter. It also appears in fourth chapter. So if you want, I can give you the. I'll have to go and look for it myself, look for the numbers and give it to you. So the second meaning is 100 years. So Shankara has given two meanings for Sarvamayu. The first meaning is that he will not have apamrityu. He will not be subject to abuse of free will. He will not commit suicide. The second is he will live to the full allocated lifetime, which is 100 years. Okay. Now you shouldn't take this 100 years as absolute. Why? Because you have interpretations saying that the Bhishmacharya was 120 when he fought the war. Anyway, so but take it as Shruti Vakyam. So long life is a better meaning. And Shankara says between the two meanings, Shankara says these are two meanings I am giving you. But between the two meanings, one interpretation is better. The first one. So why? Because Sarvamayuhu means allocated life. The first interpretation is correct. Apamrityu. It is correct. But in the he says the second interpretation is a better one because why? Upasana must give you some phalam, right? And supposing your prarabdha karma has given you a life of only, say, let us say 50 years. Then if you take Sarvamayu, he will not commit suicide. How long will you live?
50 years.
50 years.
And between 50 years and 100 years, which is better? So Shankara says the second meaning is better. Even though first meaning is technically correct, the second meaning is better because it gives you a desirable fruit of phalam is there. In the first meaning, you will still have a short life. Right? Therefore, the implication is that even if the origin, see, this is a very important idea. The one who does this upasana, the implication is what? That even if the original prarabdha is less than 100 years, the upasana punyam will extend that prarabdha to 100 years. Right? So this is the upasana phalam. So we should all start doing this upasana immediately. Because you need at least 100 years to be able to study all the shastra, right? Then, ye pranan brahma upasate. The one who meditates on prana brahma, on the samashti atma, which is Hiranyagarbha. What happens? Sarvameva te ayuryanti. They will get full life of 100 years. That's why he says prano hi bhutana mayuhu. Since prana is the sutratma, is the life of all beings, by meditating on the sutratma, you will get full life. And of course, we know the rule for upasana. Tam yatha yatha upasate tadeva bhavati. The manner in which you meditate, do upasana, in that manner only you will become. So whoever practices this upasana, what is he doing? He is connecting the Vyashti and the Samashti. Of course, as Vedantics, we have to ask one question here. Is this a Sakama Upasana Phalam or a Nishkama Upasana Phalam?
Sakama. You're
Sakama.
asking for 100 years.
And then, what is the more desirable phalam for a Vedantin? It is the Nishkama Upasana
Chitta
Phalam.
Shuddhi. Yeah.
Chitta
Chitta
Shuddhi, Chitta
Shuddhi.
Vishalata, all these things. So life, your respect for life will increase. And of course, you will have purity of mind and your mind will expand. So that you can understand the Shastra better. And of course, the identification with the Veshti Pranama comes down. And this is very, very critical. Because unless you chip away at your identification with the micro pranamaya, how will you move to manomaya? Even if it is manomaya, micro, you have to break the identification with pranamaya before you can move to manomaya. Therefore, even in that respect, it is very, very important. And therefore, tasmat sarvam sarvayusham uchyate. The sutratma is also called sarva ayuhu, the life of all. And then there is a iti. Iti means the ring mantra is over. Okay. Now here, again one small technical point. Prano hi bhutanam ayu. It comes twice. Right? Once in line number 1 and once in line number 3. So there is a repetition. What is it for? This is the purpose of highlighting that tam yatha yatha upasate tadeva. In whatever manner you meditate, the phalam will be that only. When this ring mantra is over, why am I constantly saying ring mantra is over? Because which Upanishad is, which Veda is this we're talking about? Taitriya Upanishad.
Krishna Yajurveda.
And when you say Rig Veda, you are pulling it from somewhere else, right? And therefore you're saying, now the Rig Veda mantra quotation is over. And therefore we are back to our Upanishad, which is the Taitriya Upanishad. And there what it says, Tasyesha eva sharira atma yaha purvasya. Okay. So sharira atma is that which is inside the sharira. So Shankara writes, Sharira Atma means Esha Eva Sharire Annamaya Bhavaha, which means that which is inside the Annamaya Shariram. What is that? It is Pranamaya, because we have poured the Pranamaya into the Annamaya. Therefore, Pranamaya is also called Sharira Atma, the Atma which is inside the physical body. And Yaha Purvasya, he says. Which is, Purvaja simply means which is the Shariram, the Annamaya discussed earlier. Purvam means earlier discussion. So he's just making very, very clear that this Pranamaya Atma is inside the body. Purvasya means that same body which was discussed in the earlier mantra. So don't go around thinking it is some other body. Right? Okay. With this, the Pranamaya Atma subject is over. And we will now move on We have to enter the which kosha now? Manomaya kosha. So he says tasmat va etasmat pranamaya anyo antara atma manomaya. Right? Tasmat vai. Vai, in fact, tasmat etasmat pranamaya anya. So in fact, different from this pranamaya, anyaha, different. Pranamayat, antaraha, and interior to pranamaya. Right? Tasmat etasmat pranamayat anyaha antaraha. So there is something else which is antaraha, which is interior to pranamaya, but which is pranamaya anyaha, different from pranamaya. What is that? Manomaya. So you're moving from pranamaya to manomaya. And Shankara gives the definition. Manaha iti sankalpaka atmakam antakaranam. He gives the definition. That antakaranam, manaha means that antakaranam, which is in the nature of sankalpaka vikalpaka. Where have you seen this definition?
Tattva-boda.
And what does it mean? So, what is sankalpaka vikalpaka?
Oh, constantly move,
This or that.
wavering.
Fluctuating.
This
Rather,
or that.
This
may,
and that, right? Did I lock the house? Did I not lock the house? You know, that sort of thing. Okay, so now we are moving, right? Because he's saying antaraha. When you say antaraha, you are saying that I am now considering that I am the what is inside. I am the manomaya. Atma manoya means I am manomaya now. There is no kosha we are talking about. I am manomaya. And if I am manomaya, what have I done? I have relegated pranamaya to anatma. And therefore pranamaya becomes a kosha. Right? Once you say I am manomaya atma, then pranamaya becomes anatma. So this is the first step. Anatma nishchayaha. Determining that pranamaya is anatma. And then we have to follow other steps, which we have done earlier. Once you have determined that something is anatma, you have to accept that it is product, karyam. So anatma nishchaya, from there we going to go to karyatva nishchayaha. And once you accept that something is karyam, product, then you accept that it has got name and form, nama rupa. The third step is nama rupatva nishchayaha. So remember these steps. Anatma nishchayaha, karyatva nishchayaha, nama rupa nishchayaha. Once nama rupa is accepted, what is the next nishchaya?
Mithyatva.
Mithyatva nishchayaha. And whatever is mithya is as good as non-existent. This process of understanding is what we call pravilapanam. Right? Remember, this is the Vyashti part. But during the Upasana, the Sutratma has to be resolved into its source also. So it's a very important point. At every level, the Vyashti and the Samashti has to be seen, has to be considered. Because ultimately, this whole Upasana is Vyashti Samashti Upasana. Vyashti Samashti Aikya Upasana. The oneness, the non-difference of Vyashti and Samashti has to be seen. Okay. Then we say Tena Aisha Purnaha. Mulam we go back to Tena Aisha Purnaha. So here Tena means what? Manomayena. By this Manomaya, Eshaha means Pranamaya, Purnaha. That Pranamaya is filled up with Manomaya. Which what have you done? You are now pouring that Manomaya into the Pranamaya. What is the shape of the Pranamaya? It is the shape of the Annamaya. Therefore, ultimately, at this point of time, Manomaya also takes up the shape of the Pranamaya. Pranamaya is already in the shape of Annamaya. Therefore, Manomaya also takes on the shape of the human body. Therefore, Tasya Purusha Vidatam. This is also in the shape of the human body. Sava Eshaha Ayam Purusha Vidaha Anuhu. Therefore, this Manomaya is in keeping Anuhu, following Ayam Purusha Vidaha, the shape of the human body. Again, we have to repeat to ourselves, Manomaya does not have intrinsic shape. It assumes the shape of the container. The container for Manomaya is Pranamaya. Pranamaya itself doesn't have an intrinsic shape. It assumes the shape of its container, which is Annamaya. Annamaya has got an intrinsic shape of the human body. Therefore, ultimately, Pranamaya and Manomaya both have got the human shape. Having said that Manomaya has got human shape, we have to look at the five factors, right? The five parts. So the Moolam says, Tasya Yajureva Shiraha. So Tasya Shiraha means the head of the Manomaya. Yajuhu Eva is indeed the Yajurveda, all the Yajurveda mantras. Okay. Now Shankara in his commentary gives a very interesting note. He says a Yajur mantra is a mantra which has got several lines of the mantra, and the letters in the lines are also very irregular, which means there is no uniformity in the number of letters. It's a very nice definition. What do you call it in English? Which has several lines, and in each line the number of letters are irregular. What does it call in English? Come on, guys.
Paragraph.
Prose.
Prose.
Shankara has defined one simple word English prose by using this particular idea. Okay, then why does the Shruti say that Yajurveda is a head? Because when it's a technical point, in a Homa, in a Yajna, the Rig mantra is used for Avahanam, inviting the Devatas, right? When if you have seen a Yajna and correctly done Yajna, you will find that the ring mantra used for inviting the devatas to come and sit. Once the devata comes and sits, he is your guest, right? So you have to tell him how great he is. Glorification is necessary. And therefore, ring mantra used for inviting devatas, sama mantra is used for glorifying devatas. And after glorifying, what do you do? Once he has come, you wash the devata's feet and all that. You told him what a great devata is. Then what is necessary?
Offerings.
Offerings, oblations, right? So these are the uses of these three mantras. Rig mantra is for avahanam, in which invitations. Sama mantra is for glorification. And Yajur mantra is used for offering the oblations. And the most prominent part of the yajna is the oblation. And the head is the prominent part of the body. Therefore, the Yajurveda mantras are the oblations, are the head of the body. That is why Yajurveda mantras are taken as the head of the Manomaya. Does it make sense? Hopefully, it makes sense. Because Shankara is not saying here,
Yes.
you take that because Shruti says so. There's a reason, the logic has been given. Right? Then the next one is Rig Dakshina Pakshaha. The Rig Veda is on the right side. Again, literally, it is south, but here it is right side. Why? Because for all rituals we face the east. And therefore, here also, Rig Veda is taken as Dakshina Pakshaha, the right side. And Sama Uttara Pakshaha, Sama is the left side. So The head is one, and the two head is the Yajurveda. Rig Veda is right side, Samaveda is left side, and then Adesha Atma. Adesha Atma means Sankara says that in the context of the yajna, Adesha means the Brahmana portion of the Vedas. Okay, the Veda has different portions. I hope you remember. There is a Brahmana portion also. And Brahmana portions normally contain all the instructions for performing the rituals. Right? In any Veda, if you want to see how to perform the ritual, you have to go to the Brahmana portion. Because there are other mantras also. The Brahmana mantras, they contain the instructions and they're extensive, right? And since the Brahmana portions are extensive, why are they extensive? Because rituals are many and each ritual has a particular way of performing. And those instructions are given. Therefore, the Brahmana portion is a very large portion. And therefore, it is taken as the middle portion. So, the central portion is that all the Vedic injunctions in the Vedas, the do's and don'ts and all that, they are all the what we call the Vidhi Nisheda Vakyam. They're all central portion of the Veda. The central portion is very large and therefore it is called Atma. So Adeshaha. Adeshaha means instructions. That is why the Brahmana portion is called the Atma. Adesha refers to the instructional portion of the Veda. Instructional portion means Brahmana portion. Therefore, Adesha Atma means the Brahmana mantras contained in the Brahmana portion. That is the most important part. That is called Atma. And then it says Atharva Angirasaha Ucham Pratishtha. So the Atharva Veda, which has mantras which were revealed by Atharva Rishi and Angirasa Rishi. So Atharva Angirasaha. The Atharva Veda mantras revealed by these two rishis. Pucham is the lower part. Pratishtha, which is the support. Right? We have come to the Pranama Atma's lower part. Pucham is the lower part. And that lower part, which is the Atharva Veda mantras, they are the support. Why do we say that Atharva Veda mantras are support? Because the Atharva Veda prescriptions are meant for health and prosperity. You call it Shantika Paushatika Karma. Well, for this Ihaloka Phalam, health and prosperity. And that is why they are taken as the support. And Shankara says that whatever be the goal in life, Shankara's commentary here, whatever be the goal in life, remember, none of these goals are achievable if your health is not taken care of. Because for all karma, basic human need is health. And therefore, this Atharva Veda mantras, which are prescribed for the purpose of keeping you healthy, that is the pratishtha, that is the support for the Manomaya. So, we have another 5 minutes. I can finish this mantra in that case. Are you guys okay with 5 minutes more?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so here Shankara discusses a problem. He says this in Annamaya, we mentioned 5 parts. All 5 parts mentioned are parts of the Annamaya, right? Shira, Dakshina, Pakshaha, etc. In Pranamaya, all the 5 factors mentioned are part of Pranamaya, Prana, Apana, Samana, etc. In Manomaya, what are they? They are the Vedas. What is the difference? In Annamaya, Pranamaya, all the 5 factors are part of the Annamaya and Pranamaya. But Vedas are not part of Manomaya. They're outside the Manomaya. They are Shabdaha, they are words. How can they become part of Manomaya? And Shankara gives the answer. Of course, the answer is very obvious. What is the answer?
Through Shravana and through practice of
The Vedas are Jnanam. How is Jnanam registered in your mind?
Thoughts, mental,
Manovritti, a thought.
mental.
And therefore he says every Veda mantra finally is what? And when it is understood, it becomes a vritti only. Therefore, a Rik mantra is a Rik mantra rupa vritti. A thought in the shape of that mantra. The mantras are only symbols which communicate your thoughts, vrittis, and therefore they are very much part of the Manomaya Kosha. Hence, every mantra is necessarily, finally, not in the words form, it is in the form of a mental process only. Therefore, all these Dakshina, all the Vedas, Uttara, all that, are fine. All the Vedas ultimately are vrittis in your mind. Therefore, they are also part of the vrittis, of the Manomaya Atma. And then he says, Tadapi Esha Sloko Bhavati. In this respect, the following Rig mantra is quoted that we will see the next class as the next Anuvaka. The third Anuvaka is over. So with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Thank you
patience.
so much.
Om
Thank you.